Welcome, listeners of WHFB AM 1060 and WIMS AM 1420, as we launch another edition of the Green Radio Network. Here on the Green Radio Network, we'll bring you a variety of green topics and the latest information on green technology and transportation. This program features environmental leaders throughout northern Indiana and the entire nation. The Green Radio Network is sponsored by NERPC, the Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, and the award-winning South Shore Clean Cities. Both entities are leaders in the environmental industry and work together to bring cleaner air and more sustainable living to northern Indiana. Now to introduce Carl Lisek, Executive Director of South Shore Clean Cities and the host of the show.
Well, thank you for that introduction, and welcome to the Green Radio Network. Today, our guests are Mr. Matt Chlebowski. He's the Director of Central Services for the City of South Bend, and Mr. Jeff Hudak. He's the Fleet Manager for the City of South Bend. You know, it's great to have both of you. Obviously, you know, you are two of our favorite fleet managers for the state of Indiana. And, you know, first of all, I would just like to congratulate you both on, you know, the successes. And today we're going to talk about some of those successes and, you know, the things that the city of South Bend and you two in particular have accomplished here for the city. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Central Services Division and the role and within city operations?
Well, Carl, the Central Services Division is one of the 5 divisions that make up the Department of Public Works. We are an internal service department. We're support function for the other city departments. We have 5 cost centers. We run a print shop. We have a central stores function, building maintenance, two-way radio communication, and our largest is the equipment services, which Jeff is the manager of. Mm-hmm. All fleet management services for our motorized fleet of 850 vehicles are run through the Equipment Services Division.
850 vehicles, that's amazing. That's a lot of vehicles to be responsible for.
That is quite a few, and sometimes, you know, it can be a little overwhelming, but it's I like to think of it as organized chaos.
Exactly. And again, I know you guys do a great job with this. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Matt.
No, that's fine. Of those 850 vehicles, going forward, we have 3 electric, we have 24 hybrid, 17 dedicated CNG, 156 biofuel for a total of 200 alternate fuel vehicles, almost 25% of our fleet.
Wonderful. And does the city have any plans on going, you know, further? 25% of your fleet is alternative fuels. Is there a plan in place for the city to continue on that movement?
Yeah, Jeff does most of the vehicle bidding, mm-hmm. and we're bidding all of our equipment with the CNG option. Mm-hmm. We use a life cycle cost analysis. We determine whether there's a return on investment. And then our goal right now is to reach 80% by the year 2020. So that would be 80% of our fleet would be using compressed natural gas as a fuel source. Right now, it looks like we're not going to reach that goal. We may be a little behind mm-hmm. due to the fast fill station that we had planned for 2013 didn't get open until just last year.
Sure. And again, just another great proponent of alternative fuels, and you know the great things at the city of South Bend with your partnership with Transpo. Yeah. So I know that the city of South Bend was recently recognized as a partner for clean air by MACOG. And received a certificate of achievement for your Green Fleet program with South Shore Clean Cities. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your green efforts?
The goal is to reach 80% of the fleet by 2020. Mm-hmm. And like Matt said, we might have to readjust that. We're going to have to revisit it. But we'd like to, besides the CNG stuff, which is a pretty good chunk of our fleet, we're also looking into replacing more vehicles with hybrids as well. And we do have quite a few of those already in use. Mm-hmm. And the 3 electric vehicles, 2 of them are motorcycles that are used by the police department.
Okay. Very, very cool. And so I know as you talked about, you know, these 850 vehicles and some of the things. How did you get started with alternative fuels? Let's talk a little bit about that. Is like, you know, when you decided to go with compressed natural gas, why did the city of South Bend decide to go to compressed natural gas?
Well, it all started back in 2011 mm-hmm. with South Shore Clean Cities, mm-hmm. and you kind of introduced us to a Diesel-Wise Indiana grant that mm-hmm. was available to help us switch over to compressed natural gas. So we did a lot of research.
Yes.
Had to do a lot of digging, pull up the information. We started doing cost analysis on vehicles, what it would take, what the cost would be, and what the return on the investment would be. And back in 2012, then, we got the go-ahead from the city administration, which has been very supportive. The city council, South Bend City Council, has supported it and given us the funding to go ahead through the budgeting process. So really, that's when it all started, 2012. We went out and we got help from, like I said, South Shore Clean Cities. We applied for that Diesel-Wise Indiana grant. We bid for solid waste vehicles at that time with the option for CNG. We contacted compressed natural gas fueling station suppliers, and then it just took a lot of coordination.
And, again, I know you guys were like sponges. I know that, any event that was available, I know you attended events, you talked about, you did a lot of investigation on your part. And I think, just like anything that was new, I think, we want to highlight all the great things that you've done. But, this was a very big process for the city and you two individually to take on because it's change. And again, we always talk about, a change in work and new things and, how things were accepted when you started suggesting some of these changes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there were mixed emotions about it. Some people were on board with it. Some people are, kind of excited about new technology, so to speak, even though really CNG is not new. It's been around for a long time. And, you will have some naysayers. And so we just kind of had to work through that. And we looked for champions and certain individuals, different groups, at the different department levels to find some of these people that were on board with us and to try to push the positive stuff and smash any of the rumors. Some of the stuff that comes up were untrue things about the program or whatnot, or about the fuel itself, and so we just kind of had to work through it like that.
Well, having a fleet of over 200 alternative fuel vehicles, what impact has it had to the city of South Bend?
It's really been twofold. Certainly there's a monetary impact and the environmental. As a municipality, certainly everyone's looking at trying to save money, save money on our fuel costs. There's a lot of vehicles, 850 vehicles. So it was first monetary that we looked at. In 2016, we used 119,700 gallons equivalent of compressed natural gas. The total cost of that fuel was $63,300. Our final cost averaged out to 53 cents a gallon.
Wow, that's incredible.
Gas.
Yes. Even with the price of diesel fuel and conventional gasoline, I mean, obviously this has made an impact on the budget of the city of South Bend. Would you say to our listeners that because of the benefits of compressed natural gas and some of it, it's still a great return on investment?
Oh, it is a great return, and I think that's what everyone's looking for. Everyone with any type of a fleet is looking to save money on their fuel costs. This is a great opportunity to do that. Also, I'd like to point out that by using that 119,000 gallons of compressed natural gas instead of liquid fuels, we reduced our greenhouse emissions by over 300 metric tons.
Wow. And again, I know with the aggressive support of the city administration and some of the things that the city is just taking on with economic development and community development. I mean, I see this as an economic development resource for the city. And so, again, congratulations for both of you and the city of South Bend for taking this on and making this great change. So, as we talked a little bit about, how did you go from 4 alternative fuel vehicles in 2013 to over 200 in 2017?
Well, it really had to do with the city administration and getting the support from them and our city council. We need to have the funding to do that, obviously. And it's been very supportive on both ends. So looking at partnership, we partnered with Transpo, which is our local transportation district, to build a fast fuel station. That's really what we needed. We needed some kind of infrastructure, some way to fuel these vehicles. In the beginning, we were using a slow fill station just for our solid waste vehicles. Now we have a place where we can fill up in a quick manner. That's what you need to have if you're going to continue to build on your base of vehicles. So we continue bidding vehicles with the CNG option. We run the cost analysis, and we'll receive approval if there's a return on the investment. Certainly, again, with all the help from South Shore Clean Cities and you guys, it's been very easy for us to make a sell.
Well, and again, I think one of the things too that working with Transpo, you have like a memorandum of understanding. I mean, working collectively as a team. Again, I mean, I'm not saying everything was simple, because it was not simple. There was a lot of unknown factors. There was a lot of things that you needed to work out. Priorities of who's going to which vehicle will have priority, and when you go to the fueling station, getting the documentation for the cards and things like that. I know it just required a lot of information, but again, you here in Indiana, you've got the largest fleet, and you've got one of the largest fleets in the country that are using compressed natural gas. And so, people are looking at you too as our leaders in the compressed natural gas industry here in Indiana. And I know that, a lot of times we're getting calls from economic development organizations that are looking from a transportation perspective, coming into the Michiana area to say, hey, what can we find out about compressed natural gas? And again, I always say is like, I always give them Matt's and Jeff's phone number. And, again, thank you again, because you're always willing to help someone else. And, that's what it's about is, portraying, something that's worked for the city, all the education and outreach and education that you both have done on this project, but giving back. I think, paying it forward to other communities that, that are outside of South Bend. You've been doing a great job of helping to educate, speaking on panels on different things. So again, I want to applaud you for all the great work that you're doing, not only for the city, but for the compressed natural gas and cleaning up our air in the Michiana area. So thank you again for that. So we're going to take a break right now, and you're listening to the Green Radio Network here on AM 1420, WIMS Radio on AM 1060, WHFB. I'm your host, Carl Lisek, and we'll be right back with the City of South Bend Central Services Division right after this. You're listening to the Green Radio Network on AM 1420, WIMS Radio and AM 1060, WHFB. This is Carl Lisek. We'll be right back after this message.
There's nothing more important than spending time outdoors with your family. That's why it's so important to do whatever you can to keep our air clean. It's good for the environment and good for the health of your friends and family. Take a closer look at how poor quality is affecting our community. Across the 3 counties of Northwest Indiana, recent studies from the American Lung Association show that 9% of adults suffer from asthma, 4% live with chronic bronchitis, 38% have a form of cardiovascular disease, and 10% of the children in Lake and LaPorte counties struggle with pediatric asthma. Now, the number of adults with asthma is nearly that of adults with diabetes. Consider how diabetics make adjustments to their diet in order to be as healthy as possible. Everyone can make adjustments to improve air quality and the quality of life for those who live with asthma and other lung diseases. Northwest Indiana, clean air, think green, breathe easy. A message from NERPC.
Thank you again for joining us on AM 1420 WIMS Radio and AM 1060 WHFB on this edition of the Green Radio Network. So welcome back to the Green Radio Network here on AM 1420 WIMS Radio and AM 1060 WHFB. I'm Carl Lisek of South Shore Clean Cities, here to bring you the latest information on green projects and topics across the nation. Our guests today are Mr. Matt Chlebowski. He's the Director of Central Services for the City of South Bend, and Mr. Jeff Hudak from the City of South Bend. And we were just talking, Jeff and Matt, in regards to all the great things that are going on with natural gas for the City of South Bend. So when we're talking about this, what are some of the biggest challenges or obstacles that you faced when you began that switch from natural gas, from diesel to natural gas?
Well, some of the initial cost can be a little expensive there, a little overwhelming maybe. So we needed to find a way to fund that, which was a great help. We got a great help from you and South Shore's Clean Cities finding grant money. And then we also needed some support from our administration, which we got. And then there were some other things that, there was a little bit of a lack of information, so to speak, because although compressed natural gas has been around for a long time to the west of us, it's kind of relatively new around here, so we did have a little trouble finding correct information.
Mm-hmm. And as you talk a little bit about that, I know that it's not only the fleet managers that need to learn about this. I know we did some education. You did some education and training with our first responders, with the ordinances, with the firefighters. And I know a lot of the leadership and things come from the National Fire Protection and understanding some of those codes, some of the building initiatives. And again, I think, a lot of this I want to say is in our state and, for a lot of our larger municipalities and smaller municipalities here in Indiana, you were kind of the pioneer, if you will, to kind of take on some of this things and, working with us. And, it's been a learning role. But can you talk a little bit about some of the things that, even working with throughout the city is, some of the things that you had to work with, with the building inspectors and the firefighters and, potentially the mechanics, just on just some of the different things that they had to receive training on?
Well, one of the things early on was the conversion of the building to make it safe for working on the vehicles and the storage, which wasn't a lot of information available. And it seemed like we got turned around a few times, but when it came down to it, we got an exhaust system that changes out the air in a building like 10 times every 2 minutes, and a few sensors and some of that stuff. And beyond that, we did some driver training, some one-on-one with everybody to show them how to use the filling station. We had some safety training with, and you'd mentioned with the fire department. We also did some in-house with our technicians just to make sure that we weren't going to do anything that was going to put ourselves in danger. And then we also, beyond that, we had some other issues to resolve. Actually, was like with getting a compressor installed, we had to deal with NIPSCO to get the correct size of line to make sure we had enough volume to feed that compressor. And there is a lot more to it maybe than people think, and so you really got to kind of do a lot of research.
Well, and again, I think you always do things by EPA's regulations, by state regulations, and again, I think that is the promise is that working with the city is that everything is done correctly and properly for the safety not only of the employees but for the protection of the citizens of the city of South Bend. And so again, a lot of the information there was not a go-to municipality in our state that you could really talk to in regards to how do we do this in our state of Indiana. Working with our state fire association, we worked a lot with them. So there, again, with the pioneers, now we've got the experts in the room, if you will. And again, I think, as we talked before, it's like, I know that you are getting a lot of inquiries about, return on investment, safety, but then, how potentially other communities and businesses can really make this, take compressed natural gas and compressed natural gas vehicles to the future. So, as you looked at, some of the other things that potentially organizations should look at when they're making changes into another fuel source, can you talk a little bit about that? Some of the other things that potentially we should be aware of?
Yeah, most generally, everyone's looking at the dollars again.
Sure.
You have to perform a cost analysis, and what you want to do is you want to look at the life cycle of the equipment, not the vehicle. The equipment that we have, the tanks and such, are guaranteed for 20 years. They're certified. So our plan is to move them from vehicle to vehicle.
Okay.
So we're looking at a life cycle cost of at least 20 years for each piece of equipment. We can switch that into another vehicle. You want to look at your infrastructure. You got to have some way of fueling your vehicles. Do you want to go with a slow fill or a fast fill station? The slow fill is less expensive, but it takes a whole lot more time. And the fast fill, of course, is more expensive, and it fills almost as quickly as a liquid fuel facility will do it. You want to look at your facility modifications like Jeff talked about. Are these vehicles going to be parked inside? Are they worked on inside? Is there sensors that need to be put in there or some kind of air exchange system to make it safe for everyone inside that building? And then, of course, training. You got to have training for your mechanics if you have mechanics on duty. You got to have training for your users, how to fuel it, the safety of the compressed natural gas and fueling procedures. Unfortunately, I think there's some folks out there who believe compressed natural gas is a bomb waiting to go off, and that's really not true. You can go through the safety training that we've gone through, and it is a very safe product to use.
And again, I would agree. You're listening to the Green Radio Network here on AM 1420 WIMS. Our guests today are Mr. Matt Chlebowski and Mr. Jeff Hudak from Central Services for the City of South Bend. So what else? So as you talked about some of your fleet users, how have they accepted some of the changes that have occurred?
We have a little bit of everything. We have some people that were really kind of excited about it. They heard about it. They researched it a little bit. Thought it was kind of nice. It was a good thing for the environment. There's some people that really just don't like to accept any kind of change, maybe, and it is a little bit, on some of the biofuel stuff. Now you're fueling up with two different fuels, so they kind of viewed it as a hassle. But I think after a while, we got a lot more people, a lot more feedback, positive feedback, and people are a little more apt to use it. So that was the one thing. But like I said, again, you got to have some champions. So you got to look to the couple people that are excited about it, spend a little bit of time with them, and then give them the correct information so that when they're sitting around the water cooler, so to speak, they can pass on the right information, or at least find out when somebody says something, well, that's incorrect, that will never happen, or that type of thing. So it's about giving some positive feedback.
Sure. And I know that, a lot of the things that we did with some of the demonstrated vehicles that you had on board was getting people behind the wheel to see that, well, potentially this is the same vehicle that we've always driven, or a brand of vehicle that we've always driven, pretty much the same power. But why don't you talk a little bit about, some of the positive things that you've heard back from the feedback from some of the heavy duty vehicle drivers. I know the sound has been a big thing with refuse.
Really, what we found is the sound is much less than on a pure diesel vehicle. And the other thing that they like is here in northern Indiana, the vehicles start in the winter. They have spark plugs. They have a fuel system that starts up just like your car would, rather than the old type diesel would. And there was some talk about maybe a loss of power using compressed natural gas as opposed to the diesel fuel. And we have not found that to be the case. These vehicles are doing their job just like the diesel would.
So you've got a variety of these vehicles that are running on compressed natural gas, from police cars to almost Class 6 vehicles or heavier.
Solid waste. We have dump trucks. We have quad axle dump trucks. We have pickup trucks. We've got 200 vehicles out there running on alternate fuel. That's
awesome. So what do you see as the future, Matt and Jeff, for the city of South Bend when it comes to alternate fuel vehicles?
Well, I think we're going to continue. We had the support, like I said before, the administration. Now that we have the fast fuel station in place, we're going to continue to bid vehicles with the option. Again, run the analysis like we talked about. If it makes sense, if there's a return on investment, we're certainly going to buy that type of vehicle. Some exciting news we have right now, as we're speaking, there's a contractor installing a pipeline from our wastewater treatment plant to our slow fill station at the solid waste division, and we're going to start using our methane to power those vehicles very shortly. So
a renewable natural gas station.
Correct.
That is awesome.
Yes,
and again, I think that is, again, some of the foresight, working with, some of the partners with the city. And I know this has been an ongoing discussion that I know that we've been involved with for many years, and it's finally coming to fruition. So congratulations on that. So as we come to the close of our program, what else would you tell a fleet manager or someone that might be interested in adopting similar practices but aren't sure what's the right move for them?
Well, you need to contact South Shore Clean Cities. I mean, that's where we got started back in 2011. There's a lot of information out there. Contact us. You need to do your homework. You need to investigate and calculate. That's what I call it. And it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. There's more of that information becoming available. Jeff and I are both always willing to talk with someone or meet with someone that has questions about it. We find it very exciting. It's been very educational for us. It's been a fun time.
Well, and I think you talk about that. Your personalities are very accepting to individuals. I mean, you're not flashy. You come across as very sincere, and working with you for the last 5 to 6 years, that's the kind of people that you are. That you want to do the right thing for not only for the city of South Bend but for our state. And so I want to say that. So as we come to our final question, so what does Matt and Jeff want their legacy to be as they come to their career end? What do you want people to remember you by?
I think the positive impact that we've had on our environment and trying to be, and I don't really think of myself as a pioneer, especially with this CNG stuff, because it's actually been around for a number of years. Mm-hmm. But I just like people to remember me as trying to do the right thing and trying to promote something that was positive and good for the environment.
Yes, I would agree. Like I said, it's been fun. It's been a learning experience. And as we move forward, I would just like to see that, we paved the way for others. And we've helped others. And that's really what I want to do. Anyone else who wants to go into alternate fuel vehicles, whatever it would be, whether it be electric or propane or compressed natural gas, the information that Jeff and I have, we'd be glad to share with anyone. And I think if we can make that decision easier for anyone else, that's what we'd like to do. And again, congratulate both of you and the city of South Bend for the great work that you've done and the great work that's coming up. And that will do it for today's edition of the Green Radio Network. Please join us again on AM 1420 WIMS Radio and AM 1060 WHFB for the next edition of the Green Radio Network. And visit us online at southshorecleancities.org. And thanks for joining us. And remember, it's never too late to begin your environmental legacy. Thanks, everybody.